and welcome to this segment of Piecing the Ruler Revolution Way. I am Patty Nethery, the owner of Ruler Revolution and the inventor of a dozen different quilting rulers. Today the segment is called Miters and Minutes. Now if you've ever tried to do a mitered corner, sometimes it gets a little tricky and they don't turn out perfectly. Well, using the Snowball Ruler by Ruler Revolution, this technique will turn out perfect every time. And I have some samples for you here on my table. The first sample here is a little baby changing mat, and all you do after you make this is you fold it in thirds, and then the little Velcro straps hook together, and this goes in the mom's diaper bag for travels. This is very easy to do, and I've embellished it just a little bit with some prairie points and some beadwork. Also, you can make placemats, you can make pot holders, coasters in two different sizes, and we have a pattern called Miters and Minutes that gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do this, how to do the miters and minutes. So let me get set up and I'll show you how easy it is to end up with a perfect mitered corner. To make the miters and minutes, I'm going to show you here on my board the steps to go through, and then we're going to make one also. You start out by selecting your large piece of fabric, and what we're going to do just for time savings is we're going to make the pot holder size, but you can actually make any size mitered corner object with this technique and with the ruler. You're not limited to just this size. So in this example, I'm going to start out with a 12.5 inch square, and I'm going to take my Snowball ruler, line it up on the square, and using the outside diagonal lines, I'm going to mark on all four corners. Once I have it marked, it looks like this. Then I'm going to take some little seam tape, and I'm going to tape the outside edges, and this little seam tape's 1/4 inch. And then you fold it over till you have a perfectly finished seam line. Then you're going to sew the corners on the diagonal line that was drawn. Go back and trim off to 1/4 inch seam allowance, press the seams open, and then cut your little end of your seams to a point there. Turn it right side out, create your little frame, and then I use a focus fabric here and 2 layers of batting. I lay this on top, stuff it in all the way around, sew the opening here, and then sew the outside edge. Let me show you how to make miters in minutes. As I mentioned, I started out with a 12.5 inch square, and I took my Snowball ruler and I marked the 4 corners with my sew line pencil. Once it's marked, it looks like this. And I've already taped 2 of the outside edges of this block, and what I do at this point is I'm going to take the paper off of this little seam tape, and then I'm just going to take my hands and I'm just going to turn under this edge. Now you can actually iron this little edge under. I find that I get a much more straight line if I do this little technique with the tape versus ironing it. And you'll notice in front of me there's 3 different packages of this tape. It's all called Wonder Tape, and there's 3 different manufacturers for it, but you'll notice on each package it has Wonder Tape on it. Once I have those 2 little edges turned under, then I'm going to tape the other 2 edges. And this tape is very easy to use. You just line it up on the edge and then press it down with your fingers as you go. And then I'm going to go back in just a moment with a little tool and press it down a little bit firmer. Once I get to the end, I take this little pressing tool and just press it tightly down, and then remove the paper edge again and fold it under. And we call this miters in minutes because, as you see, it's very quick to do. And then I'm going to do the other side. Trim off the excess there. Use my little hand iron here, and then pull the paper cover off. And then I go back and do these little edges with my little iron here. Okay. Now at this stage, I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to line up the edges in this little triangle area, and I'm going to sew on these diagonal lines on my machine. And I just hold this in place. I don't even bother to pin it. And I back stitch whenever I start sewing, and also when I end. And I'm going to do this 4 different times on all 4 corners. Again, I'm lining up the edges that I've turned under with the little tape, and I'm sewing on the diagonal line. And I back stitch. And this is a neat little project if you're doing maybe a hostess gift to create these little pot holders and coasters. The baby changing mat is a gift that can be made in a hurry if you're short of time. And actually on the baby changing mat, I used some pre-quilted fabric, so I didn't even have to quilt that fabric. And the last little seam here. What I'm doing now is just trimming off some of the thread at the end of the seams. Okay, yeah, it looks like this when you have it finished. And at this step, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim down to 1/4 of an inch here. And then I'm going to create a little point here at the end, you can see there. And that just takes a little bit of bulk out of the corner whenever we turn this unit. Now before I actually turn this unit, I'm going to press these seams open. That a little better. And when I press them open, I let my unit just kind of hang off of the edge of my ironing board so that I'm not pressing it flat, because once you press in a seam, press in a crease, sometimes you don't get that crease out. So I'm just going to press these open. And I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. And I find that by starching my fabric, I end up with a much better result than when I don't starch. And my favorite starch to use is the Faultless Professional Starch. I have a can here on my table. And I find that that starch gets things stiff, plus it does not flake up on dark fabrics. So at this step, I'm going to turn this right side out. And I just go to each corner. And then I have a little tool that's called a purple thing, and I'm going to insert it in between the layers, and I'm going to push out the corners here. And you'll want to do that carefully so that you won't punch through your fabric. And once the corners are punched out, then I just take it back to my ironing surface, and I'm going to iron it, this time putting that crease in there. A little squirt of spray starch. Okay, And then my layers of batting and my little focus fabric, I'm going to stack them to where they're straight. And then I just lay them on top and line them up to where there's just a little bit of an edge all the way around, because that edge is going to be taken up with the thickness of that fabric. And then again with my purple thing, I'm going to hold these layers down real tightly with one hand, and then I'm going to take this little purple thing tool and I'm going to start stuffing these little squares inside the frame, being careful not to let my stack shift. So if I'm not holding with one hand, I'm holding the stack with the other hand so it doesn't shift on me. Okay, and once I have it basically stuffed in there, then I just run this little purple thing tool around the outside edge and flatten it out. And then I would go back and I would sew the opening closed, and then I would sew around the outside edge. And just some more examples. Here's one that's completed. Another one that I did a little bit of fussy cutting here to put that little frog in the middle, but you can actually do embroidery work here and just frame it out. And then a small placemat that I did a little decorative edging here. So I hope you've enjoyed this segment of Ruler Revolution, Miters in Minutes. Our rulers are available on our website at rulerrevolution.com or through the major distributors, or you may call us at 936-520-1928. And again, not only is the ruler available, but also the pattern for Miters in Minutes. Thank you.